Euzubillahimineşşeytanirracim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi şrah li sadri ve yessir li emri ve hlul ukdeden min lisani yefkahu kavli. Selamun aleyküm ve rahmetullahi ve berekatuh. Inshallah, we will continue with the 20th word, and we will, inshallah, today study the miracle of Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him. We will study the verse, we said, "O fire, be cool," and the means of safety for Abraham.
Okay, then inshallah. So I want to read the paragraphs, the two paragraphs before that. You know, when the author is discussing about the language of the birds and how, you know, they are being subjugated to the under man, how they can be useful to us. And then that's one of the practical meanings. But then there's also this elusive meaning that was mentioned in the last two paragraphs. And so I will just try to read that again. And remind me if you guys discussed this, and maybe I might have missed it because I have a friend over, but I'll read it again just to, maybe it's a revision also. So it starts from "O man." Does everybody know? Just put a yes if you found that. It's in the middle of the page, on page 268 in the online link. Okay, good. "O man, in order to honor his prophethood and the complete justice of his rule, I subjugated to one of your fellow men who was totally submissive to me." And just to clarify, this is the elusive tongue of the verse that Almighty God is saying in terms of the meaning. So again, "O man, in order to honor his prophethood and the complete justice of his rule." So referring to the prophet who we were discussing, between David and Solomon. So in order to honor his prophet and the complete justice of his rule, I subjugated to one of your fellow men who was totally submissive to me the huge creatures in my dominions. So huge creatures in my dominions, causing them to speak. And I made most of my troops and animals his servants, in which case, since I have committed to each of you the supreme trust, from which the sky, earth, and mountains shrank, and I have given to you the ability to be my vicegerent on earth, you should yield to me, the one in whose hand are the reins of these creatures, so that the creatures in my dominions may yield also to you, and you may obtain in the name of the one who holds them their reins and rise to a position worthy of your abilities. So I will pause here and look at this paragraph, basically. So does anybody want to say anything before I start my thought process? So all these, basically all these animals or the birds and what have you in the creation, they are all are all submissive to a particular command. So whoever made them, whoever gave them existence, so they are definitely following that creator's command, right? And they are specially made for also to interact with men, and the ones who are really benefiting is man from all these other creatures in terms of the animals and the insects, whatever you have. And he says even the huge creatures, so for example, the elephant, many people ride on elephants, such a huge creature compared to man, and still that is subjugated and serving man when they are properly trained. So those are all, like in circus, you would see even the wild animals, and they are obeying whatever however the circus master is kind of training them according to what they have to do. So pretty much every creature is able to be subject to man's, to serve man. And that subjugation in terms of the way man is using them is what the author says that is how they are speaking to man, because they, the way we train them and the communication that happens, that becomes speech and language between the man and the animal. And then the author goes into a section which says, in which case, since I have committed to each of you the supreme trust. Now he uses a technical word called supreme trust, which we can discuss. And he says, the supreme trust from which the sky, the earth, and mountains shrank. So something that is, from what I understood, that means the guidance in the scriptures. That is what the supreme trust is referring to, or the meaning side of whatever we are extracting as human beings. And this particular guidance, is really the one who can benefit the most is the human being who possesses the most consciousness in their being. So the sky and the earth and mountains shrank is a symbolic teaching that nothing else in the universe has that ability that the human being has. And with that, the author of this universe says, I have given you the ability to be my vicegerent on earth. So the human being being the representative on earth. And you should yield to me, the one in whose hand are the reins of these creatures. So whoever the owner is, that source is the one I have to seek or hold on to or ask, because that owner is the one who owns all, or under whose command are all these creatures that are in the universe. So that the creatures in my dominions may yield also to you. So if you yield to the creator, then everything else becomes subjugated to you. And everything that you are using, for example, if you're riding on a horse, or if you are, have some chicken in your farm, everything is all that, although we benefit from all those things, but they are actually under the command of the one who gives them existence, who holds them, their reins. That's what I understood and right. But my duty is to acknowledge how these, we just take it for granted, when I'm frying an egg or boiling them or whatever, and then never think about that. This is something that is a gift, or the one who, made the chicken in a way that these eggs are coming. It's not the chicken itself that is producing those eggs. We just take it and then just use it and think that it's coming from the chicken, but it's not really the chicken that is delivering the egg. Although through the chicken you get the egg, but the source of existence and this whole order and this process does not belong to the chicken. The chicken did not decide how it's going to be and how its life cycle is going to be. So as a human being, I have that ability to actually seek who the owner of, or who the creator or the maker of this order and all these beings or animals and that I'm interacting with and that I'm using in my daily life. That is something, at least my 2 cents on how I understood it, but anybody else, please feel free to raise your hands who want to add to what the Supreme Trust is and anything else that maybe I misspoke on something. Okay, I guess nobody has anything to say. Then I will continue with the next paragraph, which is, let's read. Since the truth is this, rather than listening to the gramophone, playing with pigeons, and making them deliver letters, and teaching parrots to speak, you should strive to attain to the most agreeable and elevated amusement. Then the mountains may be huge gramophones for you, like David's, and the harmonious recitations of divine praises may reach your ears from the trees and plants at the touching of the breeze. And the mountains may show their true nature as wondrous creatures who recite the divine praises in thousands of tongues. And most birds may be clothed in the form of intimate friends or obedient servants, like Solomon's hoopoe. Then they may entertain you and drive you eagerly towards the perfections and attainments of which you are capable, and not make you fall from the position required by being a human being, like other amusements. So here, based on the earlier paragraph where he says, if you have been, man has been given the supreme trust, has been given the guidance, as I understood it, to know exactly what the meaning behind all these things in the universe and all these animals that are, many are domesticated by human beings, what they all mean and what they refer to. So the author is suggesting that listening to the gramophone, I'm assuming again, is the echo from the mountains, or it could be the birds singing. So anything that is that we get entertainment out from within the universe. So playing with pigeons and making them deliver letters and teaching parrots to speak. So all these animals that we are using, or anything else I would extend that to anything else we are using in the universe, pretty much. Even nowadays, maybe the phones and the electricity and Wi-Fi signals. So everything is are now the major, the ones that are being used by the human beings, like at least in the city life and civilized societies. So, and then man should strive to attain to the most agreeable and elevated amusement. So there is one amusement that may be just referring to the benefit that we get, and we never really question how these things are working. And then there's the agreeable and elevated amusement. And that definitely would be referring to something that using all these things from the universe, and one can arrive at who the source of those things are, and basically fulfilling who, as a human being, what my abilities are and what my purpose is, why I am here. Because through those things, I'm able to know that, utilizing my abilities, I'm able to follow that supreme trust, or really get benefit from that supreme trust. Using my consciousness, I would be really able to understand. Then the mountains may be huge gramophones for you, like David's, and the harmonious recitations of divine praises may reach your ears from the trees and plants at the touching of the breeze. So only when the human being is really using their abilities and is conscious of all these things that they are interacting with in the universe, only then they are able to benefit as a human being from then the mountains may become, then the mountains become the gramophones. And the recitations of the trees and plants, which I pass by every day, and most of the time I don't even hear their recitation. So this is highlighting that there are abilities man can actually communicate and interact and see that all those that the plants and trees are also that they are wondrous creatures, the author says, and they are reciting the divine praises in their own, the way they are made. And I will pause here to hear from Birkan.
Jazakallah khair, Qasim. I want to just add one point about this paragraph. Anyone here wants to add before me? Nothing? Actually, you were saying something? No? Okay. So one thing, like at the beginning of the paragraph, he says, since the truth is this, rather than listening to the gramophone, playing with pigeons and making them deliver letters, which are same as teaching parrots to speak. I think this part really interesting because up to this point, in each miracle, he was saying this specific miracle shows the limits of human science or technology. Like for instance, he was saying when we were studying the miracle of Moses, he was saying like the machines like drills and things that we use today could be an example of or maybe an instance of the miracle which was given to Moses. He was making all these connections, but here he says, I mean, at least the way I understand, I might be misreading it, but he says, do not fool yourself with these technological advances or the toys. Like when he says, do not listen to gramophone, I take it as like, do not waste your time by playing with the technology, or do not waste your time by taking the science as just science in itself, like teaching you something or showing you how to manipulate the nature, whatever. Do not fool yourself with this. Do not try to benefit from the utility of the things, like teaching birds to deliver letters. There's nothing wrong with that, but when you get lost with it, when you take the life as we should extract benefit out of the nature, we should extract benefit from the birds, or when we lost with this utility aspect of things, then he says you're losing the real message there. Because all these advances, all these developments are given to you to teach you something, to give you some names of the creator. Like the phone by itself are what is called like a smartphone here. Our smartphones, they don't mean anything by themselves. Like, do not get fooled with their glittery or the what is glittering? Is it? Anything. They're bright, alluring features. They are meaningful, or they are beneficial as much as they can teach you the reality in front of you. If they can make trees to speak to you, then you are benefiting them. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time. If mountains are not speaking to you, when you use this technology, when you benefit from these technologies, if mountains are not speaking to you, then you're just wasting your time. You're just losing, you just get lost with the entertainment. They are there to show you that everything is given as a miracle. And again, like if you are getting the right message out of them, then when you look at the mountains, when you look at the trees, or when you look at the birds, they should speak to you. Otherwise, it's just an entertainment for you. So I think like this part was really interesting because, again, the previous part, there was aspect of the text, there was like a slight meaning of the text, which you can read it as if author was suggesting us, developing technology or being the leader of the technological developments, whatever. But now he's saying that these technological developments or the science has a purpose, has a meaning, only if you can reach to your creator through them. Otherwise, they are just entertainment and nothing, just a waste of time.
Distraction.
Yes, exactly. They are just distraction. And I guess another part that I like with this paragraph, like he's putting the gramophone and, let's say, the tree speaking in the same paragraph, as if telling me that the sound I hear from a gramophone or from a phone, let's say, is not any different than a tree speaking to me. So if I'm taking the sound from the phone as something natural, as something understandable, let's say, without any mystery, then I'm losing something there. If hearing sound from phone is normal, but hearing sounds from tree is abnormal to me, that means there's a point that I'm missing.
This also reminded me of, since he was talking about birds and delivery of messages, it automatically reminded me of Twitter with the bird and delivering messages. So I guess it's somehow related, although at Nursi's time there were no Twitter nor the bird of Twitter. But I guess there's a reason that they put the bird as a logo for Twitter. This is where, so when I'm looking for some sort of a distraction, or let's say I am busy, get bored, I take my phone, get into the Twitter and look for some of the birds tweeting, and just 140 characters that I'm going to read in there is not going to teach me anything. Maybe a tiny bit of things if the guy is a serious person, to the extent that 140 characters can teach me whatever. It's being used for amusement. I'm trying to distract myself with such stuff. So instead, author is saying that don't try to, this is definitely a gift in the creation, such a communication tool, but I'm using it for getting nonsensical messages and just polluting my mind. Instead, author is suggesting that take messages from the creation. So change your understanding of amusement. Instead of enjoying somebody else's parrot-like repetition of retweeting, the retweet of retweet, like parrots repeating stuff, instead of going like this, go and open the window and see what a bird really says. Yeah, what a real bird is tweeting and what it means.
I guess the way we take these bounties given to us, as you were saying, it's so interesting. Like, imagine the Solomon, and he was talking about the Solomon miracles that someone was, quote unquote, teleporting the throne from one place to another place. Imagine that they were using it as a tool of entertainment, like teleporting themselves from one place to another place, having fun and so on. So it sounds very insulting, right? We're talking about a miracle which is given for a certain purpose, so that he become, again, quote unquote, the vicegerent on the earth. He becomes the prophet, but instead he using it to, let's say, teleport the food from one place to another place, and then starting a business out of it. So we wouldn't take it as something serious, and we would say, like, that's just an insult. What are you doing? And we are doing the same thing in our lives, like the way we use, let's say, Twitter, the way we use the computers, the way we use the phones, the way we use, I don't know, any kind of miracle given to us, so that we can teach something about our Creator and the ways we use them. Just like, insulting what is given to us.
Very question. So, what is the main reason then, for us, or what's the main reason that prevents us to establish that kind of connection with the beings? Why are we not able to have that kind of the way that he explained in the second paragraph? Speaking for myself, I don't know, of course, about the others and their relationships, but why is it so difficult to establish that kind of relationship?
Relationship with other things, like birds, mountains, and so on. Okay. Asim, you heard the question, then since you are the moderator, I guess it's your responsibility to find someone to answer.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the question is, why are we not really finding the divine praises from the interaction with the universe? Right, as the author is saying, that just for the sake of those things that we are interacting with, either it be your emails or your cat or whatever animal or plant that you are benefiting from, right? Or the fruits that we eat, or the vegetables, whatever. So why are we not really benefiting in terms of finding the divine praises from all this? And Faria says, lack of seriousness with the meaning of my existence. And I would say, definitely that is part of it. And another part I would add is not really realizing that this temporary entertainment for no purpose, what is that good for? I mean, I would say, I benefit from all these plants, all these fruits and vegetables, and the air and the trees and the sky, but at the end, I die. So what good would that do to me? So that's one thing that we don't really, and ties to what Faria is saying also, ties to the seriousness. We are not using the abilities that we are endowed with, things that we have in terms of we are conscious beings, because I know what I can identify things that, this is a banana tree versus this is a red bell pepper, this is a green one. So all that distinguishing abilities in terms of reading the universe is there for me. But then what purpose is that ability for? Is it just to use it and then die? Or is it to use it in terms of getting to know who made it? Why is it this way? What does it mean when I taste something? What does the taste signify? Is somebody treating me with his generosity? Somebody is being kind to me. Somebody is showing me mercy. Somebody is showing me compassion. So those are some of the things I would say. And feel free to add to this, whoever wants to. Berkan on the Philly side, anybody?
So nobody wants to say something, but I'm just to fill the gap. Some quick thoughts, maybe. I guess this is also related to this supreme trust. If we take it as our capacity to go beyond things and from our limited senses reaching to limitless qualities of the Creator, and our choices to make this. So I guess it goes, it somehow boils down to how we use our capacities, how we use our potentialities in reality, in our life. And also maybe it's related to, again, in this previous paragraph, author says, you may make all these creatures to serve you. Right? He says, yes, let me read this sentence, sorry. I have given you the ability to be my vicegerent on earth. You should yield to me, the one in whose hand are the reins of these creatures, so that the creatures in my dominions may yield also to you. And you may obtain in the name of the one who holds them their reins and rise to a position worthy of your abilities. So I guess our relationship with creatures, our relationship with the other things is not in the way to see them as potential servant of ourselves. I'm not using this servant in term like in sense that a horse is a servant to me because I can ride it, but rather the horse is there to teach me something. With what is given to it, it teaches me something. And birds teaches me something else, and then the eagle teaches me something else, and plants teach me something else. They serve me in my, let's say, journey. I guess when we don't take life as a journey, when we don't take the life as a teaching, because when we are not aware of our potentialities, our capacities, when we see ourselves as restricted, limited beings trying to survive in this dark universe, then the life is not a journey for us, and life is not a teaching for us. Therefore, there is no point of seeing things as servant to us, like a teachers for us. And I guess when we lose this sense of guidance, when we lose this sense of being taught, then nothing can teach me anything. Mountains cannot speak to me. Birds cannot speak to me. Maybe it all starts with, seeing what I am and what I need, what I want. Going beyond these restricted senses, going beyond this restricted reality that I experience. Don't see the life as something constraining you, like pushing you into darkness. And without that, maybe there is no way to make mountains to speak to you, because you don't want anyone to speak to you in the first place.
So do you think maybe it is because of the fact that we may not, I don't know again, how everyone feels about it, but we may not be really convinced with the fact that the beings actually they are something to be read.
Yes.
So is it because of the conviction or the fact that that's how they are, or is it because maybe not really knowing the language? So I'm just thinking, if it is such an elevated amusement, I would want to do it. I want to experience it. I want to enjoy it. But when I look at myself and my interaction with the beings, it's just far from the reality. It's there is no such thing in my life. So why is that this? On one hand, the author claims that it is an elevated amusement that one should really seek for. But on the other hand, when I interact with the creation, I don't see it as such, or I don't experience it as such. And I don't necessarily look at the creation as something to be read or get some sort of message from.
I think one explanation that I can think of is I don't have prophet or people that would reflect the role of prophet in my life that much. Because let's say if somebody is doing, let's say, enjoying some sort of a dance, which I have never seen before, but just seeing that this person is in a joy and doing this dancing, I'm just getting interested in it, saying that I would like to be happy like this. This person is demonstrating happiness in front of my eyes. Maybe it's a temporary joy, but I am only observing this much of joy. Maybe if the guy goes his home, he's going to just become very upset. I don't know. But the time frame that I observe is pure happiness being manifested in front of me, which becomes very attractive to me. But if I see somebody who is really communicating with birds or trees, meaning that these, in discussions, yeah, we are having such conversations, but it would help me to see some people which are truly having such a, if I observe them in real life, not only during the discussion setup, having a conversation with the creation and having a happy life. Whenever, let's say, I come across this person, maybe when as a friend, as a guest, or when I travel together, whatever, in various parts of life, if I do observe that that person is in sort of manifesting constant happiness with a constant conversation with the existence, then I would like to adopt this behavior into my life because it is tested and guaranteed that it works. So at least I am feeling lack of such a thing in my life.
Lack of examples.
Lack of living examples. Because the conversations that we are having is more being in the intellectual level or maybe just the conversational level. So, and we feel like we are convinced, but I don't know what level of a conviction we are really having. Is it just an intellectual conviction, or is it just all my feelings are also being convinced, because the two are different? Then this might be a reason that it's not coming into action, because there are some things in me which are not still convinced. Like when I see this person happily dancing, something in me is being convinced. Maybe not my intellect, but some other part in me getting convinced and saying, okay, let me try.
It makes sense, like since the context of the text is all about the prophets, but it's not only about the miracles, it's about the miracles of prophets. So, yeah, whatever, I don't know, like to be honest, I don't know what represent the prophet in my life today, but yes, like examples. And unfortunately enough, like, again, going back to this, the example I was giving about the miracle of the Solomon, and in a hypothetical scenario, the Solomon abusing this miracle, I guess we mostly experience this in our life. Like the people who are given miracles in our time, for instance, the person who given the miracle of the phone, or the miracle of the curing the cancer or whatever, like all these miracles, making a box talking, showing the images like the TV. All these peoples, at least most of them, like the people given miracles, instead of using these miracles to teach me something, to guide me, to be a messenger, we see them usually abusing these miracles. Using them to distract our attention from the source of this miracle, but rather putting value on themselves, as if they become a means of unbelief. That's so unfortunate. Like all these miracles in our lives are covered. So forget about having these living examples of Solomon, for instance.
No contract.
Yes, we have just the inverse of that. living example of anti-Solomon we have.
So why are they covered, all these miracles for us?
So, like, if to take any technological advance, like, do you think all these technological talks or scientific talks helps your belief? Helping your belief meaning, teaching you something more about your creator, or are they there to distract you from the belief? In my case, at least, like, I even have these anxieties whenever people talk about the scientific advancements. I know that it will go to the point that people deny the God. So all these miracles, there, just like in Solomon's case, like his miracle, for instance, was there to teach people, himself and people, about the Creator. But in our case, these miracles are used to attack the Creator.
Yeah, thank you for all those good points. Does anybody else want to share anything? I know, okay, Faria has a comment. She is saying one of the reasons why we are not able to see the real meaning behind things is because I have accepted the apparent reality. So there's a reality for this universe that the universe showcases, that is, do this and that, achieve this and that, and then die peacefully. So yeah, two conflicting kind of worldviews. We just use the universe as it is and then die peacefully, whereas the other one, finding the meaning. Faria, you want to add anything on that? Okay. Okay. Anybody else who wants to say something? So I know, like, this reminds me, one of my friends, we were having a conversation, and like all these miracles that we are presently studying, the comment was like very interesting that all those miracles are not really, we're not talking about the one who performed those miracles, or let's say in this case Solomon or David. We're not really focusing on that, but immediately the miracles are being brought to our human lives, though, in our day and age. So I just thought that was like a very interesting observation and comment, like how we, from the miracles, although they were historical, but we as human beings are able to benefit from them and see how that relates to us. That is something more concerning than something that would be tied to something in a historical aspect and that happened to somebody or somebody else benefited from it. Okay, if there's any comment, feel free to raise your hand and you can speak. I know that we have a lot of folks, Faraz, Conley, Muhammad, Fariha. If not, I think we are done with this particular paragraph. Yeah, so the last sentence of the paragraph was, that's the real entertainment. If we are able to read through the divine, through the creation and the creatures, we are able to see see their language, how they're speaking, how they're, like, for example, the trees and the plants, how they are speaking with their own tongue. And I am able to see that everything is praising, like a big orchestra. The whole universe becomes an orchestra. So I am able to see all the different names that are being manifested through all these creation. Then that is the real amusement or entertainment for me. And that is as the author says, entertain you and drive you eagerly towards the perfections and attainments of which you are capable. So whoever the conscious human being is capable of, that's how the human being is perfected. Otherwise, man falls to something that is not worthy of being called a human being. Okay, so before I go on to the next verse, yeah, just feel free to raise your hand if you have anything to say. Or yeah, post anything if you have any comment or... All right, so let's start reading the next one. And for example, in the verse, we said, O fire, be cool and a means of safety for Abraham. We said, O fire, be cool and a means of safety for Abraham. This is from the Quran, chapter 21, verse 69, which is about one of Abraham's, peace be upon him, miracles. And here are 3 subtle indications. The first, like other natural causes, fire does not act according to its own wishes and nature, blindly. Fire does not act according to its own wishes and nature blindly, but fire performs a duty under a command. So fire performs a duty under a command. Thus, it did not burn Abraham, peace be upon him, because it was commanded not to burn him. So fire was commanded not to burn him. So this is one of the indications. The second one is there is a degree of heat which burns through its coldness. That is, it has an effect like burning. Through the word, be cool, Almighty God is saying to the coldness, do not burn him with your coldness.
Oh, awesome. Do you mind if I interrupt for a second? So please correct me, Yusuf and others. I think there's a mistake here. When he says through the word be cool, it should be through the word be, the safety. So there's a mistake in the text. It should be through, because it doesn't make much sense with the rest. It should be through the word be safety. Coldness, the same as your heart, be safety. Almighty God is saying to the coldness. Because in the verse, God says to coldness, the fire becomes to say to the fire that it should become coldness, and then kind of the coldness to say that it becomes safety. So anyway, the right way to say it is through the word be safety, Almighty God is saying to the coldness.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So through the word be safe, right? There's a command to the fire that be safe. Almighty God is saying to the coldness or to the fire. Is that right? Gurkhan, is that correct?
Yes, yes.
So, and there's a footnote also. One Quranic commentary states, if he had not said, be safe, it would have burnt him with its coldness or with its heat. Okay. Okay, so let me see. So, yeah, so it is saying, do not burn him with your coldness, the same as your heat. That is to say, through its coldness, fire at that degree has an effect like burning. It is both fire and cold. In fact, in natural science, there is a degree of fire, that state of white heat, the heat of which does not spread to its surroundings. It attracts the heat around to itself, and with this cold freezes surrounding liquids such as water, in effect burning them through its cold. Thus, intense cold is a category of fire, which burns through its cold. In which case, this intense cold is surely a part of hell, for it contains all the degrees and sorts of fire. So I will read the third also, and then we can all come back to from the first. The third, just as there is an immaterial substance like belief. Ooh, this is interesting. Immaterial substance like belief, which counters the effects of hellfire. So this immaterial substance called belief counters the effects of hellfire and affords protection against it. The armor of Islam. So there is a physical substance which protects against the effects of worldly fire. So there is a physical substance which protects against the effects of worldly fire. So there's a parallel. So there is an immaterial substance like belief which protects against the effects of fire, and then there's a physical substance which protects against the worldly fire, the physical fire. For as is required by the name of All-Wise, this world is the abode of wisdom, and Almighty God carries out his works under the veil of causes. For as is required by the name of All-Wise, this world is the abode of wisdom, and Almighty God carries out his work under the veil of causes, under the veil of causes. Therefore, the fire burnt neither Abraham's body nor his garments. He imbued them with a state which resisted fire. Thus, by this allusion, the verse is in effect saying, O nation of Abraham, resemble Abraham, so that your garments may be your armor against fire, your greatest enemy both here and there. Clothe your spirit in belief in God, and it will be your armor against hellfire. Clothe your spirit in belief in God, and it will be your armor. This belief in God will be your armor against hellfire. Moreover, there are certain substances which Almighty God has hidden in the earth for you, which will protect you from the evils of fire. Moreover, there are certain substances which Almighty God has hidden in the earth for you, which will protect you from the evils of fire. Search for them, extract them, and clothe yourselves in them. Thus, one of man's important discoveries and a step in his progress was his finding a substance which fire does not burn. So thus one of man's important discoveries and a step in his progress was his finding a substance which fire does not burn. And he clothed himself in garments resistant to fire. So see how elevated, subtle, and fine a garment this verse weaves on the loom of Hanifan Musliman, righteous Muslim, which will not be rent in all eternity. Okay, I will pause here and we can go through the verse and the first indication. Would anybody want to say anything? Because the first one I'm not really clear. Like, so it says the first indication is like, so fire, what it tells me is that fire itself is not acting on its own, but it's under the command of the one who made it. So it's performing a duty. But yeah, I would let anybody else to further elaborate on what that means. Yes, Berkan, please go ahead.
So just one, like a small point about this first point. So the way the authors talks about the things, for instance, the fire, it's really interesting because when he says fire does not act according to its own wishes and nature. Fire does not act according to its nature. blindly, but performs a duty under a command. So which reminds me, like, I always find myself in a position that giving examples like, I guess we all do. If you put your hand into fire, of course it will burn. And we use it as a means of teaching something, right, the people. Like, don't put your hand into fire because it burns. As if teaching someone that you shouldn't do something silly, otherwise you will deserve the consequences. And what usually I mean with that is, it's fire's nature. It will burn you, of course. Like, there's nothing surprising there. But author here, he says, like, there's no such thing. Yes, when you put your hand into fire, it burns your hand, but not because it's nature of fire that burns. Your hand is burned so that you can read a message there. The fire was commanded to burn your hand. So there was a command there. There's an active decision making there. Somebody made a decision about fire burning your hand. He wished that way at this very moment. That's the reason your hand is burned. So therefore, you should look for this someone who made this decision in this action. You should say, like, who burned my hand? Why he burned my hand? What he's telling me with this burn? Otherwise, we say, of course, if you put your hand into fire, it will burn. And we usually take it as something wise, like when we say that. But author says, no, this is just ridiculous. Because then you're denying that there's a command there. There's a purpose there. Your hand, the burning of your hand was not just waste. It was done purposefully. So to me, this is really interesting. Like looking for a command behind everything. Like you see a car crash, it's not simply the two mass crashing each other and you observing this, the momentum and so on. There's a message there because there's a command there. Somebody commanded them, all these particles, to move in this certain way. There was a choice there. There was a decision there. There was a wisdom there. The knowledge, power was there that you should observe.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else wants to add to that? So from what I understand from you, Burkan, fire is not actually burning as we see it, the way when we are thinking as if fire is burning us, but fire doesn't know actually how to burn, but it is under a command and is behaving the way it is commanded to. Okay, so yeah, any comment or so let's go to, if there's nothing on the first, we can go to the second. Yeah, so the second seems a little more scientific, I would say, in terms of how the order in the creation is working, that there is a scientist would find that the different degrees of heat, and then there's apparently something which, there's a degree of heat which burns through its coldness. So I don't know much about this, and this particular coldness has an effect like burning. And through the word, be safe, Almighty God is saying to the coldness, do not burn him with your coldness, the same as your heat. So same thing, no matter what varying forms of creation or the different levels of fire that there are, but everything as we see in the universe is under a command commander, right? So by a command, then all these things in the universe are behaving. So Almighty God is saying to the coldness, do not burn him with your coldness, the same as your heat. So it ties in back to the first one, that the fire is not acting on its own. So same thing, under the one who has made the fire, under whose reign is the fire, the fire is acting. It can only act under a command of the one who made it. That is to say, through its coldness, fire at that degree has an effect like burning. And then it's more of some descriptive. In fact, in natural science, there's a degree of fire, the state of white heat, the heat of which does not spread to its surroundings. It attracts the heat through it to itself, and it is cold, freezes surrounding liquids such as water, in fact, burning them through its cold. Thus, intense cold is a category of fire which burns through its cold. And then, yes, somebody will have to explain this, particularly the last sentence about the intense cold, a category of fire, which is surely a part of hell, for it contains all the degrees and sorts of fire. Yes, Berkan, thank you.
So I don't know the technical part of it. I mean, the only thing that I can think of it like the black holes, which they themselves used to be stars which were emitting light and heat at some point, but now even a stronger mass, but receiving things from the environment instead of emitting light. I don't know that part of it, so let's leave it there. But the metaphorical part of this heat, so there are some feelings which are apparently, I would say, hot, like love, like compassion. But as it gets warmed up at some point, let's say the extreme love, if that love does not achieve what it wants, is turning into starting to receive heat out of you. Let's say you are being extremely loved by someone and you are not able to respond to this love, then it is happening that this love is starting to take life out of you. Now it is not because this love, which was a nice and warm feeling to you towards this person, is now taking your energy as if out of you. So it's not that you are benefiting from the warmness of this love, but you are now suffering from the coldness of the love that you were receiving from outside. And it is a very, I would say, strong form of, if you like, punishment or torture. And as he's saying in here, it's a pain. So, and I think this is very much common in, if, for example, a feeling such as love is being misused. This strong feeling of love, for example, is given for connecting or attaching the heart to an eternal one. But if I don't, because nothing in this existence is satisfying this feeling. Love is a feeling that wants more and more, but there's nothing in this existence that is going to satisfy this feeling of love. And let's say if I give this feeling to a worldly being, let it be spouse, let it be child, whatever, it is unquestionable and undoubted that this person is not going to be able to satisfy that. Then what will happen? So what is happening is then this love starts becoming cold for the other person. Initially, maybe it's burning with its heat to that person, but as the degree of this love is increasing, it starts now freezing the other person, if you like. So it's both a punishment for the person who himself is misusing love, and also becoming a punishment for the other person who is being the addressee of this extreme love.
Becomes something despicable rather than something enjoyable.
Yeah. And you are not the other person is not feeling love anymore. Starts feeling lack of love because it is taking it away from you.
Can we also, in a similar logic, can we take it as because it's, for instance, the last sentence, he says, the intense cold is surely part of the hell, like intense mercy, for instance. When a parent shows mercy to his child, which is coldness, let's say, in contrast to fire, it's not burning, it gives pleasure at first, but when it becomes extreme, it's not any different than fire, it will burn as well. The mercy will burn the child when it is more than what it's supposed to be.
Not when it becomes extreme, when it becomes like misused.
Yeah, okay, that's yes, maybe a better way.
To put it more practical terms, what's happening is, let's say this love is being used in the extreme cases of loving a worldly being, let it be a human, or mercy. Then, since the response is not coming back, practically it becomes jealousy. Now the jealousy is expecting something back and trying to take revenge. So this is how the extreme love is now manifesting itself as something that it is absorbing heat from the other person, if you will. And this is definitely part of hell. I mean, if you would like to live hell on earth,
the energy which eventuates heat, right?
So if you would like to experience hell on earth, I guess this is a very good, even to say textbook example of how it would happen.
Another thing comes to my mind with this paragraph. So it's interesting, like creator says, oh, fire, be cool. I guess this point is made by many scholars, so I don't want to repeat it too much. But the word there is, in reality, is coolness, right? It's the masdar, like isim, the verb, noun. So it's not adjective in the verse. It says, oh, fire, become coolness. Just like, for instance, the child plays, like a few children playing, and they say, okay, let this be a house, and let this be a horse, and you are nurse, you are whatever. Like they decide what everything is. A box, a house for them. I don't know, a piece of wood is a horse for them. They say, oh, wood, be horse. Now you are horse. Oh, box, now you are a house. Just like this, creator says, oh, fire, be coolness. Now you are coolness. You're not fire anymore. Because, he's making the decision. The fire, as we said in the first paragraph, doesn't have anything about burning or about heat in itself. He is the thing, like the fire is the thing that burns in our reality, just because creator tells the fire, oh, fire becomes the one which burns. But for this moment, for Abraham, he says, oh, fire, now you are not fire anymore, you are coolness. And it becomes coolness. That's part, like, it's really amusing for me. Another part, like, is the heat, the cold. So it's not like, from one aspect, at least, it seems like this coolness or cool is used as something relieving, something pleasurable, the verse, right? But then the author says that it's interesting, creator also adds this safety at the end. Because if he didn't commend for coolness to be safe, even coolness could burn Abraham. So he's saying that fire or coolness doesn't matter. Unless creator commends them to be safe, they will be harmful for you. Like the example Yusuf gave, the love. It's the coolness. It's like in this verse, it's like the coolness as it is used in this verse. You can take it as a form, but as something pleasurable, let's say, the love or mercy. They are pleasurable, or they are beneficial, or they are something we yearn for, to the extent they are safe for us. Otherwise, as you were saying, extreme love is something burns us. Because in this extreme love, the Creator does not command to be safe for love. He doesn't say be safe. He says burn. This is extreme love. This is misused love. So it should burn. It shouldn't be safe for you.
Just to clarify the point, maybe I couldn't communicate it well. Extreme love is punishing with lack of love. So the person is still loving the other person, but didn't receive a response to the love, still loving, but now trying to take revenge for not getting response. And this punishment is being a loveless and merciless punishment. So this is why initially it was a warm feeling, but now with its exact opposite responding back. And this goes with, it might be extreme taking care of children as well. This is another feeling. You're trying to protect and control your child extremely, but it comes to a point that you start acting exact opposite. So I guess many of the feelings can go in this way. Because now that they are misused, on earth we are living in the hell of such misused human abilities.
Awesome, if you don't mind, I want to add something more, but if you think it's too much, please interrupt me.
Go ahead, I'm still a little blurry on that. Go ahead, explain that, please.
I guess we can also take the opposite as well, saying that like fire also not necessarily is something burning, or in our life, we have things that we don't like. For instance, depression, anxiety, or going back to the topic that was discussed in the emails, suicidal thoughts. Like we take them as things that we should get rid of. They are bad. They will burn us. Right? But I guess the author here says there is no such thing. Even depression, or even anxiety, or even suicidal thought can be a means of safety, if the Creator commands so. It could be means of safety, it could be means of guidance, just like in the case of Abraham, if it is used properly. So I guess this paragraph rejects all preconceived ideas of ours, that the fire burns, the coolness is good. He says, no, coolness can burn. Fire doesn't have to burn. They can be safe, but if Creator doesn't order them to be safe, they can be act like hellfire. So look for the command in every action, or in everything you have. Or like repeating the cliche that we always say, I still think it's worth to repeat. Even depression or anxiety can be a message, or not can be, but is a message to be read and used properly. And in this case, it becomes a guidance, a means of finding the truth for you. In that sense, in that case, that becomes, as Faraz was saying, La ilaha illallah. When they are used properly, it becomes La ilaha. Sorry, not illallah part, but just La ilaha maybe.
Thank you. So from what I understood, you said one of the points was about the misuse of any quality, for example, love or compassion. that becomes harmful to us. And the other point I understood was everything that we are, whatever meaning we are getting out of the universe or out of the fire in this case, we have to understand that that thing cannot act by itself, but then it's being ordered to be safe for us. And that order is being given to the fire. And in another sense also, what I took away was also that if we are not really seeing the meaning behind the things, for example, while I'm eating something and I don't see the compassion, the mercy, then in that sense, I'm also hurting myself because I am not reading the meaning out of things. So that becomes kind of hurtful to me. Yeah, so if anybody wants to correct me or wants to add, I don't know Faraz is there. If he wants to add to what has been spoken about, that would be great.
Certainly, thank you, Asim. I'm listening and enjoying, and Isa is here, and so my mind is with you guys enough to listen and benefit, but not really anything to contribute. I'm sorry, but I'm really benefiting from what is said. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Feel free to jump in anytime you want. Okay, so yeah, so should we move on to the third then? Because the second, as we said, was more of a allegorical kind of nature in terms of understanding how, this intense cold can become a part of hell. And if that is when we don't see that things are being commanded by the one who made them, and that they are not acting on their own blindly. So that's one way that if we don't see that, then definitely those things will be harmful to us. So if we see that fire is acting on its own, that fire will definitely burn us. But if we understand it's under a command, then it will not burn us. I mean that metaphorically also, not like physically. If I put my hand on fire, definitely it will burn. But I'm seeing in terms of seeing that whatever is in creation is under a command of the one who made them, that they are not left on their own, that they're not making their own choices in terms of the way they are coming into existence. Yes, Birkan, please go ahead.
Just like one thing, to be honest, the way I understand Asim is that author says the thing that you said, like there's a kind of response to what you said, that you said that I'm not talking about physically, if you put your hand in the fire, it will definitely burn. I guess author is saying that it will not burn, definitely. Even, physically speaking, that there is no such thing that the fire will burn your hand. He says, yes, probably it will burn, but not because definitely it will burn, because in that sense, in that case, the creator will command the fire to burn, but otherwise it is also possible for some reason, like I don't know, that it will not burn as well. So this definitely part, when it comes to physical, like we usually feel this sense of like correcting ourselves or warning ourselves. Oh no, I'm not talking physically, it will definitely burn. We just, we were just talking metaphorically. It's about the meaning. I think it's also about the physical, the way at least I understand
what
that.
What is definite is that fire doesn't have the quality to burn.
Yes, this is definite. The fire doesn't have any quality to burn you is the definite part. The rest, just like, the creator says, let fire coolness, or no, let fire the burning one. I guess there's no definiteness there.
Thank you for correcting. So I see you're sensitive to the word definite. Okay, so the third. So just as there is an immaterial substance like belief, which counters the effects of hellfire and affords protection against it. Affords protection against the hellfire. So this belief is the armor of Islam. So something that is the armor of Islam. So there is a physical substance which protects against the effects of worldly fire. So just to see what I understood from this particular sentence is now the third aspect from this particular verse about fire, the author is extracting this meaning of that there is an immaterial substance which is belief, and that is what protects us from what hellfire is, or from the effects of hellfire. So belief is a protection, like an armor or something that protects us, just like the clothes that a firefighter would wear. That's a physical substance, as the author says, just like the firefighter wears the physical clothing that protects the firefighter from the fire. So the same way, belief for us, for the ones who are reading the meaning, for them, it acts as the protection against all the false ideas that may be out there. So I will pause here to hear from Berkan.
Azim, you just acting like me. Like when I was moderating, I was always giving the mic to you, like throwing stones to you. Now you're throwing stones to me.
He's learning too quick.
Anyone here want to help me?
What?
No, I guess we are listening for now, Azim.
I am laughing right now. Yeah, exactly. I'm learning from you. Okay, so we'll go on to the next phrase. Oh, we have Suhail also. Great. So Suhail, yeah, feel free to jump in at any time. We're starting the third aspect of the verse on the fire. Oh, fire, be cool, which became a safety for Abraham. And so the phrase was, just as there is an immaterial substance like belief, which counters the effects of hellfire and affords protection against it, the armor of Islam, so there is a physical substance which protects against the effects of worldly fire. And the next phrase is, for as is required by the name of all-wise, this world is the abode of wisdom, and Almighty God carries out his works under the veil of causes. So the way the universe is made, I mean, definitely anybody who is thinking about why the universe is understands that there's a purpose behind the universe. It's not just randomly there and for no reason, otherwise why would we be here? So there's definitely a wisdom in the existence of the universe, and everything, all the acts that are carried out in the universe are following a particular way of the way things are happening. There's an order to things, right? They follow certain processes. So, the way the rotations are done of the different planets, the whole solar system, and the way the blood is circulating in our bodies, and all these little insects and all the animals that are roaming around are all there for a particular purpose. And all those things are out of that wisdom, as the author makes the claim, but we have to see this claim that things are acting under the veil of causes. So it's not, there is a veil of causes, but that veil has to be lifted by conscious human beings. We have to uncover the veil and see the reality of things. So all those acts that we are seeing, although they may be disguised, there's a veil put on them, and then that veil has to be lifted off. And this ties back to the first and second, because the first was saying that that fire has no ability to be acting on its own, but it's acting under the command of the one who has made it. So same thing, everything under whatever we see in the universe, there is a veil on top that has to be uncovered to see that everything is acting under that same command, by the command of the one who has made those things or given them existence. So I will pause here if anybody has anything to add, to say, to question. Therefore, okay, next one. Therefore, the fire burnt neither Abraham's body nor his garments. Therefore, if I'm able to see that everything in the universe is acting under the veil, and if I understand that when I lift the veil, there is the actual meaning, that there is a source behind all that, then I would understand that this fire can neither burn Abraham's body, and Abraham, I can take it as myself, that will neither hurt me nor my garments. And he imbued them with a state which resisted fire. So just in addition to that, he imbued them with a state which resisted fire. Thus, by this allusion, the verse is in effect saying, so now the author is saying that what the verse allusively is mentioning. So, O nation of Abraham. So through Abraham's example, I can see that this allusively, this verse is talking to me, O nation of Abraham, resemble Abraham, so that your garments may be your armor against fire, and which fire is your greatest enemy. So if we take this as fire again as something that is, sorry, what was I saying? Yeah, so moreover, clothe your spirit, O nation of Abraham, resemble Abraham, so that your garments may be your armor against fire. So just like belief was acting as the armor, so I have to take that example and use that armor, which is belief in the source of existence, and that will act against the fire. And fire being the greatest enemy, both here and there. So next phrase says, clothe your spirit in belief in God, and it will be your armor against hellfire. So yeah, clothe your spirit in belief in God, and your spirit will be, clothe your spirit in belief in God, and it will be your armor against hellfire. So if you clothe your spirit with belief in God. So all this verse is really taking the human being to really understand the meaning behind the universe, lifting the veils and seeing that within the human being, his consciousness, his spirit understands that these things are not acting on their own blindly, but they are under a command. And that's how that belief is established, that there is a source behind that. Once my spirit understands that, then it will definitely act against the hellfire. And finally, Berkan wants to say something, or maybe somebody else. Go ahead, please.
So maybe I should just let you talk more about it, but I have a question about what does it mean to clothe your spirit and belief in God? Like, can we go more into this?
Could you repeat the question, sorry?
What does it mean, or what does clothe your spirit and belief in God mean? Because for me, as far as I can understand, belief is like water or something. You can't hold it, you can't keep it, it just comes and goes. And how do you clothe yourself in belief? Like, I would wish to clothe myself in belief. Like, I desire this, but it's like impossible to grasp it. Like, whenever it's granted, but Like, so I'd like to ask the question, like, what does this mean and how do you guys interpret it?
Would you like to elaborate your phrase, like a belief like a water? I mean, I liked it a lot, the phrase.
That's actually, I'm stealing that from Nursi. In other places, he says, like, sometimes some stuff is like water and you can't hold it and you can't touch it or something. It just like leaves you. And like, I mean, the way I'm getting is belief is like something I don't have a container to hold it or something. It just comes and goes and I can't hold it. That's what I meant by that. Like, it just leaves me.
Before we hand mic over to Asim, you want to say something?
But it's not going to be an answer to Abdurrahman, it's something else.
Let's use our time wisely and squeeze everything together. So,
So I don't know if this might be a tangent, but the way I was reading the worldly fire in here, also going to the original text, and there's an awkward wording in there, which might allow the interpretation that I will try to make. So there is this worldliness, fire of worldliness.
Fire of worldliness.
Yes. So let's say there's this competition in this worldly life, trying to be rich, trying to be this or that, which is also putting me, I mean, this is the shape of the society. And I am living in the society. So living in this society, how am I going to not burn in such a fire? Because you are trying to catch the standards of your society. This requires a lot of hard work, which wouldn't be necessary for basics of your life. It's okay that you would like to live the other life and not be really concerned about here, but at the same time, how are you not going to be part of this race, this competition? It's really being practically very hard, because you cannot really go and live in a cave, or you're going to work in a certain job, let's say, and your certain position in that, let's say, school, in that job environment, comes with some expectations of how you clothe, where you live, where your children are attending the school. All these stuff are coming as a package altogether. So, and how are you not going to get burned in this environment? Because this is a worldly fire. And you might still be a believer in your heart. And again, Abdurrahman's question is an open question. But not contradicting yourself, how are you not going to be burned in this fire? Instead, the fire is going to be a coolness and safety for you. How can you be in that burning environment, not burn from it? As if now Nursi is saying that, I don't know how to read into it yet, I'm just posing it as a question. He's saying that extract something, the Creator put something on earth with which you can wear, because cloth is something not part of you, but tells something about you to the outside world. It's like the first interface between me and the outside world. So my cloth is, historically, cloth has been used for showing your level or worldview, status. So it's that much of a relation to me. So also in here is saying that from earth, the Creator put something in there to you that you can extract and cover up yourself with it, so that you're not going to be part of this worldliness competition. I don't know how this would be.
Maybe like slightly related to what you said, not again as an answer. The parallel between this physical life, he says, and this immaterial substance like a belief, worldly life and our belief perspective, or let's say afterlife. That's, I guess, again, important maybe to highlight, because it also gives us a recipe, or let's say the guidance to follow how we should interact with our physical life, our worldly life. For instance, when I see that I put my hand into fire and it burns. But if I cover my hand with a specific material, which really exists, the fire doesn't burn it. So seemingly harmful thing, I can protect myself. Like from these verbal interactions, I learned this. And author, I guess, saying that apply what you learn from this verbal life to your immaterial life as well. Like when you see this material can protect you from the fire, look for the immaterial thing or the material, whatever, that will protect you from the hellfire, from your anxieties, from your fears, from the pains that you have. Look for the material or immaterial thing that will protect you. Just like the Creator teaches us in this worldly life that there is something which can be a blockage between the fire and your hand. Just like I'm showing you through this material, look for quote-unquote belief that will protect you from hellfire. So I guess this should be, for instance, taking our professions. As an arbitrary example, not that I'm trying to touch someone among the audience, let's assume you are a software engineer. So when you go to the work, when you learn something about what you do, try to extract a meaning. The author says extract this material, right? Try to extract a meaning from what you do so that it will benefit from your immaterial side as well. Whatever you do, extract something out of it. Or maybe from your race, competition in this worldly life, you should extract something as well. As an, example of what can protect you from the hellfire.
Because I was trying to think of what is the fire that an Abraham-like person is thrown into in this age. There's the society. Society is, or at least the ruling group, says that there's idols. You shouldn't be messing up with the idols. And then and Abraham comes up and says that no, la ilaha illallah, the idols are false. And as a punishment, this person is being thrown into a fire. So for going against the idols of that society. So what is that fire? I guess in this society there are the society that we live in, several different sorts of idols. And resisting against this idols of the society, in which fire am I finding myself? And that how can I, because at such a position I will try to find a way to protect myself from this fire. I guess belief matters is one part of it, which we are trying to get from studying Quran or the way Nursi is explaining it. But aside from that, belief or unbelief, still we are in this society as suffering from, you have to work 24/7 almost. You have to work, get education. Higher education is not enough. Go higher than the higher education. 8 hours, 5 days, but can't even yet better. And still rest of our lives, we are in debt. It's not that, okay, we now get a good salary, we are in good days. Not really. Yeah, you get into a house, but still you keep paying for the next, 10, 15 years. So 30 years, you are never in, and always the fire is around you. So it's not that I am in coolness, I am now comfortable. I am always worried about tomorrow. What will happen if I I am fired or if the company collapses or whatever. The worry is always there. And this is a worldly, I mean, yes, sort of you are still being in a hell, but even if you are in discussion-wise, this is what an eternal life, worldly life is going like hell because I am really burning in this environment. So what sort of a life can I clothe myself in so that I'm not going to be struggling with this sort of a fire?
I get like maybe the one glimpse of answer to Abdurrahman's question then. Like if you take the fire as the competition of the worldly life or the idols of the society and the pains through them, the belief perspective or clothing yourself with the belief would be seeing them, would be seeing their reality, that they are just idols, they don't mean anything. They cannot harm you. Just like they cannot benefit you, they cannot harm you as well. The success in society, for instance, becoming X or Y, all these titles, they cannot harm you, or being deprived from these titles. Or if you cannot be successful, we will not give you your tenure, right? It's the fire. Or we will not make you associate professor, or whatever. Like we will not give you your PhD. We will not give you the boy you want to marry or the girl you want to marry. All these idols, all these punishments. So maybe clothing yourself with the belief is seeing them as idol. They just idol. They cannot do me anything, any favor or any harm. So at least probably like first part of clothing yourself with the belief should be this La ilaha part. Like seeing all these idols as just idols. They're not gods. They're just made of clay and they cannot harm you.
I guess, can we say that then for the worldly part of it, if I take clothes as status, what sort of a status do I, what sort of role do I take myself in the society? What do I think as a fitting image? Because as he was talking about a garment in the Hanif and Muslim, in the, what was the word? Loom of Hanif and Musliman. So Hanif and Musliman is a submitted believer of La ilaha illallah. So am I taking and the way I take this is, do I consider myself as a servant of the Creator, as an abd of one and only Creator, or do I take it as a servant of my academic title or the nation that I am? So where do I locate myself? Which is my identity? So if I take myself as Abdullah and act accordingly, because this Musliman part reminds me of not only being, let's say, theoretically over the clouds, being convinced about something, but no, submitting to what I am convinced about. So if I adhere to and live by my conclusion of being an Abdullah, then I guess, at least in theory, again, I will be worshipping my car, I wouldn't be worshipping my title. But if I do worship, then definitely I'm also going to be in a worldly hell. And this nervousness I am seeing and experiencing every day at work. Because everybody around me, no matter if even they become at the top of the pyramid, becoming the professor, whatever, still the anxiety is over there. Now, then they need to publish the paper in this topmost journal. Like with initially they were maybe concerned about because of 4 or 5 impact factor. Now it has to be 45, just the top journal.
Risky, bigger.
And they need to get much more grants, whatever. The nervousness will always be there. The fire is always going to be there.
I see some comments, so I'm handing over microphone to Yasin.
Sure, yeah. Thank you for your additions also. So there's a comment from Faraz first. The question, how is belief a cloth that protects from fire, will remain unclear if it is asked by a person who is not already burning. So that makes sense. You have to be burning before you can ask what to protect yourself against. Once I know what burns, I will know what cools. So a beautiful comment. And then there's another comment from Muhammad Saeed. He says, to answer Abdul Rahman's question, for the person who experiences belief to protect himself or herself from the fire, it is a tool to keep in hand or keep it alive always, like the ideas for an author. He is scared of having no ideas for the belief to be acquired. It has to be recognized as a thing, a tool which brings complete serenity. So I'm not too clear. Muhammad Said, do you want to clarify this, what you mean?
Assalamu alaikum. The clothing the spirit, it reminded me this. It brought me this idea that as long as I am not aware of what is protecting me as a thing, then I'm not going to attempt to have it or have any tension not to lose it. That was the point I was trying to make.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, once you taste it, what protects you, definitely you want to hold on to that. So, and again, I hope Abdul Rahman got his answer. Because really, belief, as you were saying, Abdul Rahman, like water flows through, or is something not, I would say like not like water, but it's immaterial. You can't really feel it or sense it, or belief cannot go into my cells or into my hand or my body, but it is something that is only my human side, as the author puts, my spirit, which gets to experience it. And whatever the meaning that my human side gets from the universe, that is what the clothing that would become of it. So the meaning is the one that, if I am able to understand that these things in the universe are not acting blindly or on their own, but they are being commanded by the one who owns the whole universe, then that soothes my spirit. And as Faraz was saying, one has to be really burning to see that, and look for that coolness, because that is where the again, the formula of La ilaha would come, that when nothing in the universe is really satisfying me, then definitely I have to look for the source of that. Because if I see that, maybe in this example, as fire is burning, but then I will definitely be falling into trouble for myself. But I have to see that fire and everything else around me there is under a command, then that is what becomes the armor, my clothing. That's how I took it. And I know we're out of time, but if there's any final comment by anyone, please raise your hand. Otherwise, I think we can close for today, inshallah.
I don't know if this is the right kind of comment to sum up what was said, but I just from the last bit of discussion, I thought I would say that something that I myself am thinking about, so I don't have a finished thought on this, but I feel, maybe to put it this way in a short way, or maybe in a question way, if I have not taken something to be ilah, I don't like using these terms, because, so if there is not something because of which I feel happy, something that I have put my trust in for my safety and happiness and contentment, something like that. If I didn't take something like this to be something, I didn't give this status to something, I cannot negate it. I cannot negate an ilah that is not my ilah. How shall I say? So, what's the relevance of this? The relevance is human being is, and again, I'm thinking about this. Is it ever the case that human being is without ilah? And it's a question. And if, when we speak of believing in God or in this creator, I'm not sure creator is the best word actually in all contexts to use, but if I want to come to believe in something which that gives me safety, it seems to me it is only possible on the heels of or as a consequence of negating what I had taken to be ilah. And so I think it shouldn't be a matter of embarrassment for me to say that to think about what is it that I actually find security in, I find value in. Because once I can say that, yeah, I really find security and value in this, for example, let's take the other way, not like being rich. For example, I find real security and satisfaction in living a very lifestyle of, let's say, how should I say, not, very frugal lifestyle. I live very humbly. No, I don't, And the question will be, what is it in that, about it, that I have found security in, or I find value in? Or if I'm the other way, I'm going for money and being rich, what is it that I find? And so once I can identify what is it that I always, always I find, there's no moment in which I didn't find something in which I trust and find value. And then I can say, question, is it something that is the source of my problem? And if I identify that as actually that which I had taken to be trustworthy turns out to be a source of my problem, so that I would be motivated to negate it, to say, no, this is actually, and upon this negation, then I find ilah. So if someone doesn't come to the point and really says, this, in any particular, this is my ilah, really. Not theoretically, not like, oh, I shouldn't take this as my ilah. No. It is, it is. If I see that, then I can negate it. If I don't accept it as my ilah, I can't negate it. If I don't negate it, I can't find that which I can actually then trust. So, because there will be no need in me to find such a one, because I'm happy with what I have. So there is this constant, human being is in a state of this process, and the question is to become aware of it, to discover what's already happening there. And so I see this Quranic verses, and one briefly also think we shouldn't lose sight of the fact how metaphoric Nursi's interpretation of these verses. It is incredibly metaphorical. It is incredibly far-fetched, quote unquote. If you just open scripture or talk to people are very nervous about, Abraham's fire burning him. Like, how can you bring it to, like I am to be Abraham, and the cloth of belief that protects from fire. And so we also need to I think appreciate or notice that if this is a methodological point, then whenever I read something in scripture, I should not be nervous about, how does this apply to me? Because especially if you are, someone who's looking to Nursi as a methodological guide, then it's clearly, there is, this is a very clear example among others that he thinks that the verses of the Quran should speak to me. And that, I don't know if I should call that metaphorical interpretation, that we should call that relevant guidance. And so just those two kind of irrelevant points, maybe somebody else can sum up better. I just thought I'd just share what was coming to my mind. Thank you very much.
سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. الفاتحة.